The hearing room crackled with tension as lawmakers like Rep. Torres and Rep. Brown faced off against officials including Deputy Secretary Campbell, Admiral Montgomery, and General Flynn. Each side pushed harder. Questions turned into confrontations, warnings into alarms. The air felt charged, as if the entire committee was wrestling not just with policy, but with the possibility of an impending crisis over China, Taiwan, and America's readiness. Every sentence seemed to carry the weight of a warning that something could break soon.
The quote that struck my eye was, "If America weakens its commitment to defending Taiwan, then Taiwan may lose the resolve to resist. And if Taiwan is not prepared to defend itself, America will be less likely to come to its aid."
Thanks for the question. The way I would frame it is this way. I get asked the question a lot about their will to fight. I don't know, because until somebody puts a bullet through the person next to you, you're not sure if they're going to fight. But what I can tell you is this. In my view, over the last 3.5 to 4 years, their will to prepare, like to go to practice every day and to train and to get better, from the political side and the military side, in my view, that is moving in a very, very positive direction. We have momentum, and we can ill afford to lose the momentum. And therefore, being able to give them a system, like a HIMARS that I mentioned, that's interoperable with our systems, then we have a much easier way of being able to network these forces together so that they can do the things that they must do, enabled by the United States.
But is everybody on board with that? I mean, I know in years past there was a sense that maybe the military and the government was more interested in exquisite systems, right? Really expensive, shiny platforms. Is there a broad consensus around your recommendation?
I think it's getting there, right? I'll use this example. We can give them 400 Harpoon systems, but if they don't have 400 crews that actually know how to man them, use them, employ them, sight them, and have a primary, alternate, and supplementary firing position, it doesn't matter how many things they have. So my point is training and more training allows them to understand how to actually do a defense in depth. And this is where our value as a training body is so important.
Let me add to that we absolutely have to grow the joint training team in Taiwan so that they can do, that's a U.S. team there that's about 500 people now. It needs to be 1,000. If we're going to give them billions of dollars in assistance, sell them tens of billions of dollars worth of U.S. gear, it makes sense that we'd be over there training and working. Your Taiwan Enhanced Resilience Act directed the department to do it. I would say gently they've been slow. So the answer to the question is we can drive their preparations. We can help their preparations, but it's going to take U.S. engagement and involvement in this to kind of get them to the point where they really have a true counterintervention force.
With President Xi Jinping directing the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, to be prepared for a Taiwan contingency by 2027, the window for strategic investment and deterrence is narrowing fast. As a member of this committee and as someone committed to strong federal oversight and forward-thinking technology policy, I want to focus today on how we align policy, posture, and planning to meet this pivotal moment. I represent Ohio's 11th District, where families, workers, and veterans believe in the promise of democracy, the value of peace, and the need for safety. And they deserve to know that their communities and this country are protected, not just from the threats they can see, but from those they may not often think about, threats that advance online and infrastructure or across the Pacific. Today's threats go beyond missiles and military drills. They include cyber attacks, disinformation, and gray zone coercion by the Chinese Communist Party. These efforts are designed to disable our networks, divide our alliances, and destabilize democracies like Taiwan, all without firing a single shot. Deputy Secretary Campbell, what more can the United States do, either through diplomacy or regional coordination or otherwise, to counter cyber-enabled coercion and disinformation from the CCP? And how are we working with allies in the region like Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan to ensure gray zone attacks result in real consequences?
Yeah. Great. Congresswoman, can I just commend you on focusing on this critical dimension? My colleagues have already mentioned it. The cyber dimension is the area that, frankly, we have not been as attentive to. I think we've doubled down with the support of this committee and others on working on our own defenses The challenge is that, as you point out, some of the areas where we are most vulnerable requires a partnership between, frankly, the U.S. government and private entities. Some of that work is, frankly, yet to be done. It is also the case that some of our closest allies face similar cyber challenges from the PRC and other actors. We've increased our ability to work with those countries. I think we've been able to address some of the challenges, rebuild systems with greater resilience in them. But at the same time, I would just have to say that this is a work that is barely in progress, that needs much more effort over time. And you're absolutely correct. We can take all of the steps that we're discussing here, but a few flips of a few switches in a couple of places in Beijing can basically disable some of the things, the critical infrastructure in the United States, which is frankly essential to our ability to respond.
I don't really care to fight China's war or fight them in their own neighborhood. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but would you say that China's weaknesses are food, energy, and exports? Somebody want to debate that?
I would.
Okay. You think they are capable of producing all the food they need?
No, they're not.
Are they capable of producing all the energy that they need?
No.
And the export, they have a totally dependent economy based on exports because their capacity to produce far exceeds their capacity to consume. Is that correct?
I would agree.
So would it behoove us to take the fight further out? In other words, if they want, you talk about blockading Taiwan, what do we blockade them? But not right next to them, but blockade them way out. All right, so you can't get their food supply, they can't get their energy supply. And what if we develop partnerships, mainly with Europe, and say, if you indeed attack Taiwan, then we'll put an embargo on your exports and wreck their economy. Would that be a deterrent?
Yeah, I think it would be. I think we've been looking at what kind of economic security authorities we should pass ahead of time. In other words, I think it's incumbent on Congress to say to the President, if these things happen, this is what we expect. These are triggered. If you do that, that's that strong deterrent effect that says to China, if you attack, you will feel this economic pain. And I do believe that we could use legislation to then pull in our allies and partners to agree to that and create the kind of deterrent effect that gets at exactly what you want, which is pre-boom.
The way I think we got to go about doing this, we need to invest more in capacities in the United States. We need to work more with allies and partners. We have to diversify these supply chains. But that is not an easy process because we built up this interdependence for 30 years, and it will take more than just a couple of days to separate us. That is the direction that we're going, but it's going to be harder than we realize, Congressman.
I know my time is up, and just my one comment is this. It took us 30 years to become addicts, all right? And we're not going to, wean ourselves off off this drug, really quickly. But wean ourselves, we must. Thank you, and I yield back.
When it comes to the strategic competition with China, America is in a far more fragile position than most Americans realize, and China is a far more formidable rival than most realize. And so there's a sense in which we've been lulled by our superpower status into a false sense of security. And I want to ask about a few areas, starting with critical minerals. Dr. Campbell, do you agree that critical minerals and rare earths are central to the defense and decarbonization of the United States?
Yes.
Which country controls almost all of the world's rare earth mining?
China. And as you understand, I know it's not just the...
Well, you're anticipating my next question. Sorry. Which country controls almost all of the critical mineral processing and refining?
China.
Yes. Do you think the United States is in a position to deter a foreign adversary who has a chokehold on the core components of our military defense? Let's go to shipbuilding. During World War II, the United States emerged as the arsenal of democracy, building a total 270,000 vessels, including 2,700 Liberty ships in just 4 years. Which country is leading at the moment when it comes to shipbuilding?
China dwarfs us both in commercial and military shipbuilding.
And the former Secretary of the Navy would agree with you. He said that one Chinese shipyard has more capacity than all of our ships combined. China's shipbuilding capacity is over 23 million deadweight tons. The United States, less than 100,000 deadweight tons. The difference is a multiple of 230. Do you think the United States is in a position to deter a country that has 230 times more shipbuilding capacity than we do?
I think over the long term that becomes more challenging, yes.
Energy, the future of energy. Solar is emerging as the dominant driver of new energy generation. Who is the leader in solar?
China.
And China not only has an advantage in a single stage of production, it dominates the whole supply chain for solar energy. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm not really sure what my role here is, just to say yes.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. But I think the point that you're making.
But I'm going to summarize, and then I'm going to ask each of you to.
All right.
So, but because I think it's important, the depth of America's vulnerability is poorly understood, even here in Congress, I feel. But China controls the critical minerals core to America's defense and decarbonization. It has 230 times more shipbuilding capacity than we do. It is so far dominating the autonomous future of warfare, and it is so far dominating the future of energy, you can give a much longer answer now. Is it fair to say, and I will ask this question of each of you, is it fair to say that we are catastrophically, we, the United States, are presently spending more on debt service than we are on our national defense?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any further thoughts.
I'll make a couple comments. I mentioned earlier steel, aluminum, battery, magnets, microchips, and rare earth elements. These are things that we are way behind on, and the processing and manufacturing has left the United States. So we have to get it back so we can be able to protect the very things that we have to protect in order to build the things that you're alluding to: ships, satellites, airplanes, ground sensors, you name it.
By the end, the tone had shifted from discussion to dread. Lawmakers pressed, witnesses defended, and the words cyber war and deterrence hung heavy in the room. It wasn't just a debate anymore. It felt like a countdown. As the gavel finally struck, the question no one dared to voice echoed silently. Is the United States already too late to stop what's coming?